Okay, let's talk about Bond. James Bond. Hmm? A few years back, I've been a James Bond fan for good grief, 15 years. Wow. I saw my first James Bond film, which I believe was Man with a Golden Gun, when that came on TV when I was about 9 or 10 years old. And I remember I sat with my parents and my mind was blown by what I was seeing. After that, I was a fan. I was a hardcore James Bond fanboy. Every time a James Bond film came on TV, didn't matter if I'd watched it before, if James Bond was on TV, I was there. I was watching, right? As I got older, I found some of Ian Fleming's novels in our local library, and, well, being a James Bond fan myself, I read them. But I was always kind of interested to know kind of what happened behind the scenes. So whenever there was like a documentary or something on the history, I guess, of the series, I would always kind of sit and watch that documentary and go, wow, that's cool. And a few years ago, about, let me think, what is it now, 2019. So this was about four, 5, maybe 6 years back. I found a book called Bond on Bond by Roger Moore. And this is a kind of an autobiographical account, I guess, of all the James Bond films that Roger Moore starred in. And then they kind of go on from Moore's Bond. They talk about George Lazenby's Bond. They talk about Timothy Dalton and Pierce Brosnan to a point, I believe. But most of it is centered on Roger Moore's career as James Bond. And I love this book. It's one of the few non-fiction books that I've read where I actually laughed. He goes into detail about pretty much everything. He talks about how he got involved with Bond, and he talks about how, as the films went on and he got older, he helped out with, or as far as I can remember, he talked about helping out in finding a new Bond, because he felt, it's a little awkward that, that he's there seducing women who are young enough to be a daughter or a granddaughter, Oh, sorry guys, my throat's a little dry, so. But anyway, so he talks about that. He talks about Cubby Broccoli and what's Harry Saltzman, I believe is the other guy's name. So he talks about them. He talks about the scripts. He talks extensively about the on-set antics. And one of my favorite stories was actually about Desmond Llewellyn, the guy who plays Q, of course, in the early Bond films. That poor guy must have gone through hell. These guys, he must have gone out of his mind on these movies. The story goes that he would come in and do his lines, and he could say the lines and be very believable, but he was terrible with technology. And so when it came time for him to describe all this like technical jargon, he was terrible with technology and with technical like jargon, slang, whatever you want to call it. And Moore describes one prank that they used to play on Llewellyn frequently. They would record the day's scenes. They would do the scenes with Q for that particular session or that section of the film. And then at the very last minute, they would call him in. They would like alter the script slightly. Not the real script, obviously, but they would like change a few things here and there. And then they'd give him a call and they'd say, yeah, we've changed, there's been some script changes, we need you to come in right now. And this poor guy had to rush all the way down to the studio to do his lines. And then he ended up stumbling over some of the technical jargon. So, yeah, I mean, that poor guy. I mean, if I really think about it, I do feel kind of guilty that I laughed at that story, because it's. I mean, I sit here doing rough cut YouTube videos that probably don't really look like much, you know. But doing that is hard enough for me. So imagine having to, and I'm working by myself, you know. So imagine how complicated it would be if you're working with a group of people and not everybody's on the same page. Oh, that poor guy. That poor guy. You know, and this is a book that I enjoyed 100%. I didn't have any problems with it. You know, none at all. It was a very interesting read. I loved reading Roger Moore's stories about the on-set antics with Desmond Llewellyn. I loved reading about his interactions with the other Bond actors. And, you know, it's kind of a shame, I think, that he passed away when he did. You know, I think if he had lived long enough, I mean, he lived a very long life. Let's be honest, he had a very long, healthy, happy life. But I think he would have had I think he could have had a lot more to say and a lot more to do, I think, had he lived a bit longer. So it's not whiskey, but I'll raise a drink to Roger Moore, shall I? May he drive his Aston Martin in the other world. So those were my thoughts. This wasn't as long a review as some of my other reviews have been, but yeah. What can you say about a book that you enjoyed from start to finish? You know. And with that, I want to know what you guys thought. So, as we're now approaching just over 9 minutes, so I'm going to wrap up here by asking for your thoughts on this book if you've read it, and if you haven't read it, and you're kind of a Bond fan, definitely check it out. I mean, it is well worth reading. So, all that said, I'm going to sign off now. I've got, I think, one more video to do. I've been doing a lot of videos tonight, guys, so at the time of this review. So I got one more video to shoot for tonight, which on May 12th. I have one more video to shoot, and then I'm going to bed, so cheers. I'll see you for the next one.